Hi and welcome. I'm Steve Martirano, and this is the Behavioral Corner. You're invited to hang with us as we discuss the ways we live today, the choices we make, the things we do, and how they affect our health and well-being. So you're on the corner, the Behavioral Corner. Please hang around a while. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Behavioral Corner. It's me again, Steve Martirano. You know what I do? I hang here on the corner of Behavior and Corner, and I look for interesting people to stop by. None of that really happens. It's a conceit. You know that. Anyway, we talk about everything because that's what affects our behavioral health, just about everything. The behavioral health is brought to you in conjunction with our underwriting partners, Retreat Behavioral Health, and you'll hear more about them a little bit down the road. We're going to talk about something that we've touched upon many times in the past. It is much in the news, and strangely enough, we don't know enough about it. And the topic is, of course, social media and its impact on youth, young people. Just briefly before I introduce our young guests, this from the Attorney General's Advisory Board on the issue of social media and youth mental health. The Surgeon General's group said social media is used by youth in nearly universal form. These numbers are staggering. Up to 95% of kids between the ages of 13 and 17 report using social media platforms of one form or another, with more than a third of that group saying that they're on them constantly. I must have talked to some of my family members. Anyway, 13, according to the Surgeon General's group, is most commonly the required minimum age to use social media platforms in this country, but nearly 40% of the people using them are between the ages of 8 and 12 who use social media. And there is, despite this widespread youth among children and adolescents, and the robust dependent study analysis on the impact have not yet been done. So the Surgeon General is saying we need more research in this. More research is needed to fully understand the impact of social media. Currently, the body of evidence indicates that while social media may have benefits for some children and adolescents, there are ample indicators that social media can have a profound risk of harm to the mental health and well-being of our children. So who do we go get to talk about this? Do we get some, middle-aged guy to talk to a really, much older guy than that about that? Do we get an academic? Well, we have. But now we thought we'd go to somebody who's actually been in the trenches with regard to living in this social media world. And that is our guest on the corner this morning, Colton Fidelman. Colton is an 18-year-old high school student from San Diego, California. And as I said, he's been there and done that. This fellow's an expert on social media because he's lived it. Colton, thanks for joining us on the corner.
Good morning, Steve. Thank you for letting me on.
He's also an author of a forthcoming book, and we'll tell you more about that just ahead. But this is a fascinating topic, and we're grateful for your time, Colton. So how did you come to this state where you're now, thinking it's time to start talking about social media? What was your relationship growing up with social media?
Well, I have been an avid social media user for an extremely long time. I started using at around age 12 when I got my first phone. And I've been watching YouTube before that. And I've seen everything happen. I've seen the changes that have occurred in society because of social media. I've observed my friends change and people change in general, and people trying to appeal to others more because of it. And it's really generated a drastic change in today's environment.
You, I guess, are the first generation that was born into this. It didn't arrive after you were born. It didn't arrive in the middle of your adolescence. It was there when you got here. So
yeah,
go ahead.
I was about 5 years old when it really started. I think Facebook was still around when I was born, 2005. But yeah, I would say that for as long as I could remember, there were sources like that around where I could access the internet and talk to people and do all the things you can on social media.
I'm guessing, though, that it was the introduction of the phone that changed everything for you, right?
Yes. The digital phone, being able to buy apps and and use or play games and talk to people, watch videos, all that type of stuff. That's
Yeah. Prior to that, prior to that, it was the internet and social media for people your age and everybody for that matter before the
yeah,
iPhone was a passive experience. It was not unlike watching television. You said YouTube. You could look at things at it. It was very passive. Once smartphones become ubiquitous, everybody has one. Then the game changed. Can you tell us about that? Well, first of all, how old were you when you got your first internet connected telephone?
12.
12 years old.
Yep.
Did you apply that pressure? Or did your parents say, no, it's time for you to have a smartphone? How did it work?
Well, I started with a 3DS in first grade. Those no one knows no one knows what those are anymore. But
well, what are they for those of us who don't know what they are?
It's like a Game Boy, from what you guys would remember. It's like a newer version of that, but it's in 3D, so it's a little bit more attractive. But yeah, I got my first phone, and I think it was really me who applied the pressure. And so I got my mom's old iPhone 5, and I was happy with it. I was extremely happy to have a phone because it meant that I could talk to my friends, and that's what a lot of people liked.
Was there any pushback from mom about the phone at age 12?
There was a little bit. My parents didn't allow me to really use electronics that much. They'd take the 3DS away. I'd have it only for like the bus at school and stuff like that. But yeah, there was not a lot of internet phone usage before that.
Yeah.
And so after I'd asked for it, they finally gave in. They thought I was older and mature enough to be able to be using that type of stuff. And I would say they may have been a little incorrect. Kids.
Well, yeah. Well, you're right. They perhaps they didn't show enough forethought, but how could they? Parents are in a tough spot with kids your age, with the group we're talking about, in that you go off to school, and when I grew up, and when everybody before me grew up forever, that was a completely safe transaction. You sent your very young children off to a school, and you were completely assured they were going to be safe, and they would be home at 3:00 in the afternoon, and everything would be fine. We don't live in that world anymore, as you know. And so parents, just at the dawn of this technology, thought, I must stay in contact with my kids 24/7. I need to be able to get a hold of them, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So when they try to weigh, should I give them a phone or shouldn't I give them a phone? That safety thing comes right up, that parental protection thing. So yeah, give them a phone. It's better. Would you have been okay if they had just given you a phone that wasn't hooked up to the internet?
Like a flip phone, or
just a phone so they could call you. Would you have been okay with that, or you've groused, right? You would have groused about that.
So I do think expectations are incredibly important. And as a 12-year-old, you're not exactly expecting an iPhone 14. I mean, maybe today they are. But when I was 12, I think any form of communication between my parents, whenever I wanted, would be enough. Maybe later on, I probably would have wanted more, just like all kids.
Yeah.
But I think personally, yeah, I would have been fine with a phone that wasn't exactly connected to the internet.
Did you make the argument that all your friends have it?
Yes, of course. That was the same with the 3DS. That's the argument all kids make.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of truth to that, right? So tell me about your experience getting deeper and deeper into it. At what did you reach a point where you felt, now looking back, that you were on the phone almost constantly?
Yes, looking back, I remember when I first installed Instagram, and after that, I was constantly trying to get followers and post things that were interesting, and it didn't work very well. I was not very good at it at first. Nobody ever is, but yeah, I think once I started realizing that being cool was attributed to how many followers you had, how many friends you had online, I started really wanting to get that, because I wanted to be cool and fit in and stuff like that. And so I did whatever it took to do the best I could on social media, and that took a lot of time. So I had to spend a lot of time.
Yeah, it rapidly became a performance activity. You were performing. And, when I was young, and everybody before me and after me, except for you guys, there was a period of time when you had to perform for your peers, and that was usually during school and when you were socializing. But you were in a 24/7 race
Yeah.
to be 24/7 race to be cool, right?
Yes, exactly.
It never stopped.
It was constantly trying to get people to like my posts, and because I was posting memes. Do you know what memes are?
Yeah, yeah, please, yes. But
I
thanks for asking.
yeah, I sorry.
That's
A lot
okay.
of
No, no,
people
no. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
don't really care to know what that type of stuff is, which I
So
understand.
you would come up with something you thought was very clever. You'd slap it up there and wait for validation, right?
Exactly. And when it didn't come, I wasn't exactly very happy. And I think that's something that, is very important to talk about, because expectations, especially now with things like video games as well, people are always expecting things to be so fast. And so when I didn't get that validation immediately, it was very difficult to deal with that. And so I think that's another problem kids are going through.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you personally had you have a diagnosis of attention deficit disorder as well as depression.
Yes.
Did that diagnosis precede the social media thing, or did it happen after the social media?
So in middle school is when I started using social media, and I was diagnosed with ADHD in fourth grade.
Mm-hmm.
But depression was later on. It was eighth grade. So I think social media played a big part, a really big part in that diagnosis.
How did your depression manifest itself? Did you what were you feeling, and what were you doing?
I really didn't want to do anything. I found no interest in anything around me. I didn't want to go outside. I didn't want to get out of bed. I just wanted to really sit on my phone and watch videos and stuff like that. And that was definitely a problem, because I was losing a lot of friends that way.
Oh, yeah. It's a great irony of social media that it was intended to bring people together.
Yes.
And what we're seeing is that it has a great isolation effect. You say you didn't want to do this, and you didn't want to leave the house, and you didn't want to get engaged. You're talking about on the real world level. You were still attached to social media, even though you were depressed, right?
Yeah. Like I said, watching videos and sitting on Instagram or Snapchat, things like that, and never getting off, always expecting replies or new interesting things. And when I couldn't find them, it made it even worse.
Were there battles at the house about put the phone down?
There were, and Xbox as well.
Right.
Yeah, my parents did not like me on the phone that much, and they actually installed this internet thing that basically kept me from using certain apps. It was like locked apps. It was called Our Pact, I think.
Right.
And
yeah. So your parents were actively involved, saw the problem, saw that you were spending too much time, not benefiting from it, in fact, deteriorating perhaps, and got as involved as they could in trying to monitor it. Given that it was an honest and sincere effort on their part, how do you feel about looking back on their efforts? Do you think it was help? Did it help at all? Did it really slow you down, social media wise?
No, I've always been a little bit of a resourceful kid, and so I tried whatever I could to get around it. And when I finally did get around it, like I guessed the security passcode to my phone so I could turn it off. But when I finally did get it, I was right back on. And it's like an addiction. It literally is an addiction. You can take it away through things like rehab, but eventually, if you are introduced back into that addiction, you're going to keep on doing it. And
you're absolutely right. It's what's referred to as a process addiction. It has to do with behavior rather than substances, but it's incredibly addictive, and you recognize that with yourself. So when do you feel, you're 18 now, this whole slide down the rabbit hole of social media began when you were like in middle school? When did you begin to go, I got to do something about this? I can't keep living like this. When did that happen?
I gained a lot of weight in 2020 around COVID. And that was as a result of sitting on my butt all day and on the phone. I realized that this addiction was nothing more than it was baseless. There was no fruition to it. It wasn't doing anything for me. I realized that my future depended heavily on what I did then. And sitting on social media is merely just wasting time. And because I wasn't playing any sports and I wasn't really hanging out with friends all that much, sitting on the phone isn't going to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I realized that, like, I'm just going to be I'm going to be sitting here and sad all the time. And the phone, see, it's a lot like drugs. Like I talked about, with addiction, it's a lot
Mm-hmm.
like drugs. Drugs make you feel better, but they're also digging you that hole that you're trying to get out of. So, when you keep on subjecting yourself to what you're addicted to, you may be feeling better in the moment, but you're wasting your time, and you're basically coping with a problem that it's like a cycle. Okay, you're coping with the issue
Yes.
by using the issue to
Yes.
cope with so it's a big problem.
It's a very vicious cycle, and
Yes.
you're right. You're right to compare it to drug use. Drugs start out generally to alleviate some kind of pain that you're having,
Mm-hmm.
and then they become the pain. So
Yeah.
and that's a deadly trap. It does destroy lives. Our guest is Colton Fidelman. He is the author of a forthcoming book called The Teenage Guide to Becoming Successful. That's a very bold premise for an 18-year-old guy. I can't wait to get into here, get into a little bit of that and find out what suggestions you have about this thing. So let me ask you. So what were the real go-to places for you? You've mentioned Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok. Was that a big deal for you?
Oh yes, TikTok. Nowadays, I mean, TikTok is new. So when I was younger, I wasn't using it because it didn't exist. It didn't exist. Sorry. Musical.ly was in the place of TikTok. It was its predecessor, and so a lot of people were using this app called Musical.ly, where you could make music videos and constant swiping. It's a lot like Instagram.
Yeah. Were you so you were an active participant? You didn't interact with social media passively. You posted stuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. What was your relationship to your friends? I mean, not the friends we talk about on social media, but your actual friends. Did that number grow or did it get smaller?
For the most part, it got smaller. Because I was expecting them to be people who they weren't through what I was viewing on places like Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, all that stuff. I expected them to be better than they were, and so I alienate them, and I wouldn't focus on them. I wouldn't ask them to hang out, and so it was. Is
that Colton? Is that because you would look at what they were posting and say they're frauds? This is not true, and that would embitter you towards them. Is that the process?
That was one of the reasons. I'd also look at their behavior and I'd be like, oh, they're boring because they're not like XXX. They're not like this person who I'm watching, and so I'd be like, well, I could just sit on YouTube and be more entertained than the person I'd be hanging out with here, and that was a problem.
When you were deep into it, what athletes, celebrities, notable people, authors, whoever, did you follow closely that you use as sort of a role models? Who was that?
Role models. Well,
or people you admired.
Online, it wasn't so much as admiration as it was entertainment.
Right.
I expected my friends to be more entertaining, basically, right? But there were a few people. There's this video game called Destiny, and I'd watch a lot of YouTubers from that. I don't know if they're so well known. One named Mr. Fruit, he was interesting. And there were a few other personalities, not people I guess I would remember now because I think they're a bit smaller.
You mentioned the pandemic. That was the perfect storm for the growth of this stuff because we were all trapped.
Yes.
And on one level, the internet was a godsend.
Mm-hmm.
We spent vacations together virtually. We went to parties together. Some folks said goodbye to loved ones who got sick virtually, so it was a godsend. But on the other side of the equation is this isolation. As you say, you gained a lot of. How much weight did you gain? I gained weight during the pandemic too. How much did you gain?
60 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot. That's a lot of Cheetos.
Yeah, it is. It was actually a lot of Cheetos. I will be honest. But yeah, you're completely right about that. We did spend a lot of time on social media over COVID because we had to. But it also meant that we became more reliant on it.
Yeah.
So I think addictions formed because of that.
Well, it was like a life. It was like a life preserver thrown to us that was in fact made of cement.
Yeah, it's like a trap. It's carrying you out of the water, but you're still you got that bear trap on your arm. You're bleeding.
Sooner or later, you're going to be dragged down under. What was the effect socially on you and your dating? And I mean, when we start to come out from under the pandemic and you can actually be with somebody, did social media enhance your social life, or did it diminish it, or did it affect it at all?
Well, past COVID, I actually kind of got away from social media a lot. This is when I started the book process, and when I realized, it's kind of just a big waste of time. But I would say, in general, for a lot of people, dating, I would say it probably got worse. I mean, if you know a lot about what's going on in social media now, expectations for women and men alike have changed completely. And you have very large internet personalities talking about it all the time, and how men should act and how women should act. And so I think because people are holding these high expectations for people, it's causing a problem. And I think for me personally, yeah, I think it's an issue when trying to find a partner. I want them to be super pretty, super interesting, super funny, but maybe that's just impossible, and I'm expecting something too much.
What effect did it, what did social media tell you about what you needed to do to be a successful young man? What did it tell you about being a young man?
You have to be working 100% of the time. You have to be morally perfect. You always have to be on top of things and talking to people all the time and appealing. You have to follow a very specific religion. I mean, it's not like Christianity or Islam or anything like that. It's more of like the social media religion of being a man, which I think a lot of it might be right, but a lot of it's also wrong. I think it's very specific to the person who's listening, and it's not always going to apply to them. And that's kind of the issue here. People are adopting this personality that for the long term is not going to be able to be sustained by the skills that they have.
Yeah, it's tough to be on stage all the time.
Yes.
Sooner or later, the greatest actors in the world went home at night and became who they were.
Yeah.
Social media, it's impossible to do that for young people. How are your perception of women changing as you watch how they react to social media? It seems to me that women are under a different kind of pressure vis-a-vis.
Yeah.
I mean, both, I think, men and women have young people have the same problem with social media and sometimes the same benefits. But I think it's tougher for girls. Do you agree?
I think girls have always tried to, not tried, they've always been expected to follow this stigma, to be a certain way, which, like I said, it's not always going to fit the person, right? Like they're not going to, it's not going to fit. If you expect a woman to be like a housewife, right? If you expect them to be at home all the time, cooking and cleaning or anything like that, that's not going to fit a lot of women's personalities. And I think social media, at least now, is pushing that.
And then they were under the enormous pressure to look a certain way.
Oh, yes. That's probably the biggest one. I mean, you see on TikTok and on Instagram, you're constantly seeing these gorgeous supermodels, which, obviously no one's going to be able to look like that besides maybe 1% of the population. And so it's going to create this stigma where women feel like, if they don't look like the person they see online, they're not good enough.
Yeah.
And I
And
think that,
there's nothing hidden about this.
yeah.
A whole genre of people now call themselves influencers. And
Oh,
I mean, even just the straight definition of what an influencer is, it's obviously someone that's trying to make you think something or feel something
hmm
the same way they do. And these are people who some of them make a lot of money influencing you that if you don't dress like this, use this lipstick, you're not gonna be popular. Um, I got to tell you something. A lot of people my age used to in the past would go, boy, if I wish I was young again. I don't wish I was young. I don't wish. I don't know what I would do if I had to deal with that stuff the way you guys do. So, tell me about the book. People out there are going to look at this and go, "Who's the 18-year-old kid telling me how to be successful?" Come on. What was the motivation about that? Why did you decide you had something to say?
Well, I decided I had something to say because I felt like I knew a lot. Um, I mean, this was after I'd lost that 60 pounds, after I'd worked my butt off to do it. And I realized that there's a lot to pull from that. There's a lot of things to learn from working hard and staying at something for a long period of time. I mean, it's the same case with almost everything. I mean, with your podcast itself, you've probably been at this for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
you've seen success with it. And I think that, it's the same case with everything else. And I realized that this can be applied to a lot of different things. And I think that was really important to get out there.
Yeah, it's interesting. The weight loss effort is interesting. So I take it that when you were merely a social media creature, almost 24/7,
hmm
you weren't getting a kind of positive feedback of "look what I'm accomplishing." But
hmm
when you woke up and found yourself 60 pounds overweight and said, "I'll do something about this," you got a positive feedback. It's interesting. That's if there's anything glaringly wrong with social media, maybe it doesn't build self-esteem in the right kind of way,
Yeah.
through effort and work.
Yeah. People expect to lose all this weight and, get all those big muscles immediately. They expect to be huge immediately, and it's not going to happen that way. And so when you wake up and you've cut calories for a day and you're not skinny all of a sudden, you're going to be like, well, that sucks. I can't do it, I guess. And I personally had the same issue. I was like, I've been at this for 2 weeks and nothing's happening. I'm not seeing any results.
Yeah.
And it was up to me to keep on pushing.
Well, as someone who's, gained and lost my share of weight, I can tell you it's a great positive reinforcer when you step on the scale and go, "Oh, look, I lost 2
Yes.
pounds." It's
Yes,
a
it is.
huge reinforcer. Colton, what role, if any, did pornography play in your life while you were deep into the internet and social media?
So it really ruined because I did have an issue with this earlier on, like seventh, eighth grade. It did have a big issue with my perception of people in general.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you're constantly looking at that stuff, it's just it's bad. It's like I don't know really how to put it. It's interesting because when you're constantly watching people, have intercourse, sleep with each other,
Right.
you almost apply that to the people that you're interacting with on a daily basis, like the girls that you have a crush on, or boys with women, or both. Really, it just depends, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They expect sex to be immediate, and they expect it to be good, and they expect it to be interesting, and all the things that they see through pornography. And I just say, treat it like any other movie. Your life isn't exactly like what you'd see in a Transformers film, so neither should your sex life with porn. So it's kind of like the same thing.
Yeah, it's a real problem. I mean, not inherently, after a while, it's all the same anyway. But at 12, 8, 10, 12 years of age, to be introduced to sex as
Mhm.
it's depicted on the internet is a big big problem, a big problem.
Because
So,
your
all right,
expectations.
yeah, yeah.
They've
So let me.
changed so much.
What is the TikTok formula? I know you talk about that in the book, right?
So the TikTok formula is basically an analogy,
Mhm.
where it's anything that you can apply in real life. Like it's TikTok, right? So whenever you're looking at an issue, you have to be able to apply some type of analogy or way of thinking where I know how to solve this problem through these 8 steps. And that's basically what TikTok is.
Right.
And so it has a lot to do with what we've been talking about, social media.
Right.
But it also explains, just through the analogy itself, hard work, mentors, overcoming adversity, money, especially money, because money
Yep.
isn't exactly the answer. Passion, self-care, education, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when's the book coming out? Book's coming out soon.
Mid-October.
Okay. We'll keep an eye on that. Do you have siblings, by the way? I haven't asked you about that.
Yes, I have a sister.
Older, younger?
She's 13.
Okay. So are you the big brother who now preaches to her and she goes, leave me alone? How's the relationship go? You go away? How is she reacting to this?
Well, she's kind of going through the same situation that I did when I was 13, with social media and trying to appeal to people. And to be honest, she's had a lot more success than I have. She's made a lot more friends, and she gets a lot more attention than I did. And so because she's seeing success with that, it's kind of different, because I've viewed life through the lens of, well, social media isn't going to work for me. And with my sister, she's viewing it very differently. So she has a little bit more of a positive opinion in regards to social media.
Well, that makes sense. But I mean, from your vantage point, is she in danger of having anything harmful occur just because she's successful with this, or is she just seem happier and able to handle it?
I think this brings us back to the expectations of women to look good.
Mm-hmm.
So if she's not perfectly tan, or if she doesn't have the right makeup, or if she has pimples on her face, she's going to freak out. With taking pictures, especially, and posting them, if there's any pimples on her face, she just refuses, flat out to do it, because she doesn't want people to think that she's ugly. And she is not ugly. No one thinks she's ugly, but because of these societal expectations placed on her by the perfect people she sees online, she has
pressure's always there, right?
Yes, she has this unrealistic view of herself. And what
Colton Fidelman is our guest. He is joining us in advance of the book he's written, which is a guide for success for young people, and it has all been inspired, obviously, by his struggles with depression, all of which was exacerbated by social media. And he is coming out the other side with a story to tell, and we appreciate it. He shared it with us. Have you spoken to your friends do your friends know you've written this book, and what do they think about it?
Yes, a lot of them do know that I've written a book. They agree with a lot of it. I've showed them, when I was writing the chapters, I showed them, a little bit of the excerpts that I put down in regards to the chapters, and they thought that it was something intriguing and interesting. It was something new to think about, and especially because I've interviewed, the main basis of the book is the fact that I interviewed around 20 billionaires, super successful people, and put what they had to say into words. And they thought, if I've got a billionaire direct telling me how to do this, it's going to be a lot better and more interesting, because, they're the most successful people of anyone in the world, at least
monetarily.
Yeah.
Which of those rich guys most impressed you?
So I think there's one. His name is Howard Marks. He's good friends with Warren Buffett, a big stock trader, the owner of Oak Tree Capital Management.
Yep.
He's pretty big, and he was very humble for someone who's so rich. He was very nice and easy to speak to.
Did you interview Buffett?
No.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I
Well,
asked him, but Buffett's very busy.
yeah, he is. Finally, in spite of the fact you present as though you've got a handle on this.
Mhm.
You saw the downside of this thing. You know that there's an upside. You want to focus on that. You've written a book about being successful as a young person, but you haven't abandoned social media, have you?
No, of course not. I mean, I'm sitting here talking to you now, right? Like, it's all about using it in moderation. It's all about taking what you have and using it for your own purposes and not allowing yourself to be chained down to it. It's like money. A lot of people are also addicted to money, but money is a tool. It's not something that you should base your life around and focus on 100% of the time, because then you'll start to realize that it's empty. There's nothing with money. Money is only a tool, and the same things with social media.
Yeah, that's a deep insight. I mean, if young people particularly start looking at this thing as not something that is using them,
Mhm.
but they should be using it, as you say, as a tool, then they may have turned a significant corner. Colton, thanks so much. When the book comes out, we'll read it and look forward to maybe having you back on again.
Okay.
I know you'll be out on a book tour. So thanks, congratulations.
Thank you.
Is college in your plans?
Of course, I've been working on applications. That's fun.
Yeah, right. Where as long as you don't use a chat to write your essay.
No, I'm writing. I think it's illegal to do that. I'm writing it myself. I don't want to,
Where would you like to go?
I'm actually really interested in engineering. So I've been looking at places like Caltech or MIT, UCLA, USC, stuff like that, places like that, to apply to, because they definitely have the best programs. And I'd like to one day, maybe work at a place like SpaceX or Viasat, places like that. And so
I think you're going to be successful, however you figure it out. Colton Fidelman, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck with the book, and good luck with your life.
Thank you so much. And for anyone who wants to maybe sign up, get their email in so that they know about the book, teenage.guru, visit there, and you'll be able to at least get updates on what's going on.
We'll post that on the Behavioral Corner website so people will have easy access to it. Thanks again, Colton. Thank you all as well. Don't forget, you know the deal. I know Colton certainly does. Follow us, like us, review us, subscribe, do all that neat stuff. It helps the corner stay alive. Take care. See you next time on the Behavioral Corner. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Retreat Behavioral Health has proudly been serving the community for over 10 years. Here at Retreat, we believe in the power of connection and quality care. We offer comprehensive, holistic, and compassionate treatment from industry-leading experts. Call 855-802-6600 or visit us at www.retreatbehavioralhealth.com to begin your journey today.
That's it for now. And make us a habit, hanging out at the Behavioral Corner. And when we're not hanging, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter on the Behavioral Corner.